Hey, what's going on? I'm Fabian for Liberty, fabianforliberty.com or fabiancalvo.me. This video is going to basically break down the global economic reset that is happening right now, really, and wish this could maybe be a little bit more upbeat. You know, I've been posting videos for 3 years on YouTube now, and sometimes I say to myself, does it even matter anymore? Because, you know, I know that regular listeners to this YouTube channel and on my podcast and what have you, they get it. You know, they're getting ready for it. They get it. They're becoming entrepreneurs or they're doing whatever it is that they feel they have to do. And for some of us, you know, for all of us, it's different what we feel we should do. But, you know, I was thinking it's almost like, you know, the old adage, preaching to the choir. And it's why I've kind of said to myself, all right, well, we know what's coming. At least this community does. But how do we go beyond this community? Maybe we can't. But I'm thinking perhaps it's, I don't want to preach to the choir anymore all the time. I want to talk about abundance, about success, about entrepreneurship. Because people that are hip to that and are like, yeah, I want that too, then may hear my message about the global economic reset and they're like, well, wait a minute, you know, how do you reconcile the two? But then hopefully they'll do their own research. And they'll come to their own realization about the world that we live in, which is insane. I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be insane for us personally, but if we get caught up on what the New World Order is doing, if we get caught up on what the globalist and globalism is doing, you can't help not think it's insane. And so, again, in this video, I want to talk about some recent developments. I mean, some of this stuff I've been talking about now for at least 2 years, even before I had my YouTube channel. When I had a radio show in Tampa, going back to 2006. But the global economic reset, ladies and gentlemen, is underway right now. Many of you may know Obama is in China. And I would say Obama is probably pleading and begging with the Chinese right now. That's what it's come to. First, before I break all this stuff down, I just want to give a quick thanks to the veterans out there. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of veterans in my educational courses and what have you. I thank you. I recognize that you are not part of the criminal establishments that makes you fight mostly illegal wars, not illegal, but mostly just unjustified wars for their own gain. You know, my brother-in-law, Sergeant Jason Black, did 3 tours in Iraq. I'm grateful that I could be there for him. He's going through a lot in his life, has since he returned. And so are all his buddies, the ones that he could even get a hold of, because most of them, he tells me, he can't even get a hold of them anymore. And that's what globalism does, ladies and gentlemen. That is what the dollar Ponzi scheme, and again, I'm for the dollar. I wish we had a gold-backed dollar. But we don't. Instead, we have a banker-run, manipulated currency that allows them to basically go to war at will, allows them to go from creating cars and manufacturing to having a war state, a war economy. From welfare to warfare, as Jim Willie talks about, and it's so incredibly true. And all of that happens with the dollar because they can print endless amounts of it. And you know what? The rest of the world is catching up to this. So let me break down a bunch of points from the Financial Times of London, from just a bunch of different articles, Bloomberg, everything else, that is just more evidence in case you needed it. You know, it's kind of like, now it's and I don't know exactly when this happened, but now it's like the picture is becoming so clear. And I talked about this on the Fabian Calvo show today. I don't know if you've had this experience before where, you know, something's happening in your life and all of a sudden it's like, boom, it clicks. It's like, okay, now I get it. This happened for me on the global economic reset a while back ago. But again, it's like, you know, even when I say to myself, well, you know, am I maybe wrong on this point of it or that point? Then I get all this overwhelming information that just makes the picture clear on what I need to do for myself, which is, for me, it's invest in myself, invest in starting a business, getting depression-proofing my life. And I guess I should preface all this with, I wish I was wrong about this. In fact, like I've said routinely, I hope I'm laughed at years from now over this stuff. I don't know when this global economic reset is going to go down. And for those of you that are new to that theory that I've put out, it's basically the dollar losing its world reserve currency status. Now, that's not my theory. That's a theory by a lot of well-known economists out there, historians and what have you, because it's just a historical cycle. It's happened 6 times already in modern history, and we're on the cusp of the 7th time, for those of you that are into the whole biblical thing, you recognize the ramifications of that. But here we go. Putin, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, right now is seeking the destruction of NATO. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization next year in Russia will bring on board India and Pakistan. So it's no longer just Russia and China. Now, what is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? Well, it's like an Eastern NATO. Putin, over the last 6 months, not only took Crimea, and regardless of what you think about whether that was justified or not, Crimea is now in the Russian fold, right? But he basically took over a Lithuanian fishing vessel. He basically took it in because he said it was in disputed areas. He arrested an Estonian CIA guy or Estonian spy guy in Estonia, basically just arrested the guy. So he is directly challenging NATO right now. And what I think ultimately we're going to see here is him, and also you hear about him, whether this is propaganda or not, some of it's in Russian news, where you have routinely jets scrambled over Russian incursions or Russia flying close to airspaces of some of these Baltic states, NATO member states. And ultimately what I think he wants to happen is he wants to see if NATO has a backbone. I mean, if Putin goes into Estonia, or if he goes into one of these Eastern Bloc NATO countries, for whatever reason, they have some deal, some fallout, does anyone within the sound of my voice really think that Germany and the French or the English are going to send in all kinds of troops to go to war with Russia? I mean, if I'm an Eastern European country right now, I'm kind of freaked out because the NATO agreement is pretty much worth about as much as this piece of paper that I got here in my hand. Okay, that's about how worthless that agreement has become, especially under the globalist frontman who is a puppet of the globalist Barack Hussein Obama. We know he is completely worthless, and at this point it is laughable. Like, at this, Obama's in China and all these world leaders are there in this Asian Pacific summit, and Putin's like slapping them on the back and they're like laughing, and Putin's probably thinking, boy, I have 2 more years of this guy. I could pretty much do whatever I want to do. Now, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, like I said, is bringing in India. It's going to have Russia. It's going to have China, of course, Pakistan, all nuclear countries. It's bringing in Mongolia, loaded with natural resources. But how far along, or how much longer do we have to wait for BRIC nations to join? South Africa, Brazil. I'd say not long, considering that the R and the I and the C of that BRICS already joined, or already are going to be joining in the case of India. So we see here clearly not just an Eastern superbloc, as I've called for, but an Eastern superbloc with some major South American countries as well, like Argentina and others that have already signed up with Russia on all kinds of energy deals and this energy union that Vladimir Putin is setting up right now. Over the weekend I saw this incredible article in the New York Times. It was talking about this major army drill that the Brazilians were conducting in the Amazon. Actually, 70% of Brazilians believe that the Amazon will at one point be invaded by a foreign military because of the vast amount of resources. About 60 to 70% of the Amazon is in Brazil. And it didn't take anybody on record, but it talked about how long-standing military policy from the inside baseball side of things has been that, yeah, the United States is going to basically invade Brazil to take over our natural resources. And so you look at this and you see what the world really thinks about the U.S. that's run by the criminal bankers. And again, it's not the American people. It is the illegitimate government that has hijacked the republic. And you see that the kind of, restoring our global image of the world, as Obama tried to do, not only failed miserably, but the whole image of the U.S. has been tarnished, at this point maybe beyond repair. Because it has just been so incredible how, in essence, gangster Wall Street bankers have not just wrecked the U.S. economy, ladies and gentlemen, they have instrumentally wrecked not just the world reserve currency, but they, at their fingertips, can wreck the global economy with their derivative Ponzi scheme and shadow banking system and all the other scams that they've set up. Now, here's a couple big factors, because one of the things of the global economic reset, of course, is this Eastern Superbloc alliance, larger regional wars taking place. Russia, Financial Times of London was talking about how Russia is now adding the U.S. as an adversary. Before it was like, I guess they haven't done that since the Cold War. So again, it shows you where things are going. Two quick things here as well that I wanted to mention. China recently signed bilateral trade agreements with Canada. Also signed a huge bilateral trade agreement with Qatar, an OPEC member. I said this like a month ago if you watched my commentary on OPEC. OPEC is about to break up. When it happens, I don't know. But it is, you have all this infighting going on with the Gulf states and Iran and, Ecuador and all the other countries that are part of OPEC. And now the Qataris are saying we are going to do straight trade with China in Chinese currencies. In fact, it's not just them. Even Western countries are getting hip to this because I think Western countries like Germany, the English, recognize what time it is. The English, ladies and gentlemen, are now issuing Chinese currency bonds for the first time ever. As is Canada now increasing their trade with China by up to 5 times. So clearly the world is changing. Last point on that one is that European Central Bank is now also thinking about including the Chinese currency into its reserves. I remember 2 years ago talking about this, saying that, and people were like, well, the Chinese currency only makes up of 1%, 2% of global trade. Since then, a couple years ago, it's like gone up like close to 100%. So the global economic reset is happening as we speak. It's not going to just be one day we wake up and it's happened. No, it's happening now. It is underway now. The world is fundamentally changing. And again, I might be preaching to the choir. I don't know. There's thousands of new people that signed up to this YouTube channel every month. And I don't want you to take my word for this stuff. Just research what I'm talking about. Because I think, it's going to be a big difference between those that are prepared with this information and those that are not. I'm Fabian Calvo, Fabian for Liberty. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember, this Friday, if you're interested in some real cool case studies on resourceful real estate investing, stuff that I taught in my Malibu event, that's going to be 10:30 Pacific time. You can get the replay as well, but you got to sign up for the webinar. Link is down below. Thanks for watching. I'm out.